G'day everyone and welcome back to the Cyber Minutes podcast. Today I'm joined by Flynn as well as our special guest Neil. So good to have you on, Neil. Do you want to just give a brief overview of what your current position is and what you're up to?
Okay, yeah, cool. So I'm a professor at university in Southern Queensland. I'm a professor of cyber in there. I'm an adjunct professor, so it's an industry expert rather than an academic. I've just left a position as a Chief Security Officer at DXC Technology, and I've taken up to build my own business. I have been for a couple of years, really, in the military and police veteran space. So what I do now is being a CEO and founder. I'm not going to run the business, but I liaise with a lot of businesses, government agencies, and the like, cyber industry, etc., building veterans into cyber security professionals as they come out of defence. And those guys are already out. Pick up those guys, and those guys are looking to get out. We pick up those guys as well. And also do a lot with the police. I've got some background across the sector, so yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Great. So yeah, the military stuff and the veteran stuff, that was what really caught my eye when I was looking at your LinkedIn. I wanted to ask, what was your motivation to first go from, military service and to get into the cybersecurity field? And also, how do other people in that position make that transition?
Well, I transitioned out in 94, I think it was, from Army. So that's like 30 years ago, right? Yeah, 30 years. Yeah, 30 years ago. Crikey. Time flies, right? And I got out, and it was like, there was nothing around. Like, literally, leave your crap here, you leave your uniform there and walk out the door, and that's it. You're a civilian, and you walk in the street trying to work out, what life's all about. And I did my time at the 1st Armoured Regiment in tanks, so then I transitioned into the military police with a hope to transition into New South Wales Police Service or Victoria Police Force. So I got out and I was doing nothing for 2 years, really doing my own little lawn mowing business, I think it was at the time, and then got selected by both New South Wales and Victoria Police at the same time and took Victoria because the Armoured Regiment was still down in Puckapoon at the time. So all mates had gone out and left the Army that have gone out to the police service or the police force down there and made a career transition that way. So I did the same, but I'd been in policing for about 13 years. I was doing extremely well in the police force. I was rated to an acting senior sergeant, and I was still a senior constable, which the chief at the time, she had to authorise that. And I was doing a lot with IT, so I was transitioning that sort of IT project manager space. I was trying to get into that. And then later down the track, after doing some time as a federal executive in law enforcement and the CIO of the Crime and Corruption Commission in Queensland, I was ingrained in that IT space. The cyber was emerging. And so I thought, well, I didn't know anything about it. Like, honestly, I was like most people going, well, what's this cyber game? And everything I looked at was a technical qualification, and I'm a non-technical leader. So I had to sort of look at how that would work and what I could do to get into that space. And there was clearly no pathways or evidence to support anybody, be it ex-military, police, or guys in the street. It's just a very shadowed area. And I eventually got in. I think it was more luck, but I used a lot of my policing experience to get there. So incident management was very similar to policing incidents, and having that ability to manage lead and then to manage crisis and manage events and that sort of stuff. Then understanding, obviously, the IT layout gave me an advantage to see how that would fit with a governance or risk governance compliance or governance risk compliance set out and how that lays out the policy, etc., in the landscape of cyber. So it was a massive learning curve. I was lucky to get I think it was an architect job from memory. But I was the only cyber guy in the entire company. It was a global energy company. We had 203 power stations across the world. So it was all IT, but we also had an IT environment, of course. And so it was like just the learning curve straight up and reading a lot. Got my CISM certification and just went from there.
Yeah, well, yeah. That's very, very interesting. You mentioned that when you sort of were serving and when you transitioned back to civilian life, that there wasn't really much support. They'd just, as you said, you sort of just take off your clothes and then bang, straight back into civilian life. Is that sort of different now? And how is that a bit different? And is there kind of more of a pathway to move into IT? You've sort of mentioned as well before that you're looking at potentially bringing people who are ex-military people and bringing them into IT. What's that process look like now compared to then?
It's no different. When I left, there was no support, right? So I couldn't even tell you the Department of Veteran Affairs was around in those days. I couldn't tell you at all. There was no veteran support for jobs or training at all. And you just dealt with the head got on your left. And if you didn't have a transition out plan, you're pretty screwed. But nowadays, there's a lot more emphasis on transitioning military veterans into the civilian sector. There's a whole heap of effort in there. Right? We see that through the Royal Commission. We're seeing that through businesses like Helping Heroes, who I work quite closely with. A lot of the technical companies and cyber companies now have recognised that. So your big players, your Google, your Amazon, SANS, Cisco, and then you get into the cyberspace with Fortinet and Palo and the rest of the guys have seen this opportunity to harness that military talent. So now you would think there's a defined program. There's not. There's no defined pathway. Hasn't been ever. And what we decided to build is, when I was at DXC as a CSO, I was also head of military and veterans and the head of the D&I, which is crazy. But as head of military and veterans, we put a program together to build a best practice framework for veterans in our business. So we grabbed everybody we knew that was a veteran and got them together and sort of brainstormed a strategy. But out of that came a gaps analysis around what are we missing as a business to get veterans into our business. And there's a couple of things that really resonated. We don't have a framework in place. In fact, most businesses don't. I'll tell you they do, they don't. Head on heart, it's rubbish. So they'd support the veteran when they get in there with their nuances and their culture and that sort of stuff. There's no opportunity to have that debrief conversation about some of the stuff you didn't solve with like-minded colleagues, just as a way of venting and getting some frustration out in the day. There were no specific veteran cultural programs. There's no veteran training programs. It's all, you're lumped into IT effectively, or cyber if you cover the cyber. So what we built was we built a pathway, and we were working with the University of Southern Queensland at the time. So we built a completely bespoke, get the university out of the way of the veteran and the cyber industry, because the cyber industry runs itself. Now, government will try to legislate, it has done, and so countries legislate GDPR, the rest of it. They continue to legislate to make businesses fall in line with compliance. But fundamentally, it is the industry that runs the industry. And it's too big to change, and it's too complex. It's an extremely complex industry. I mean, I've been in law enforcement for most of my career, both state and federal, and I've never, ever experienced such a complex environment as cyber across the globe, even just locally. It's crazy. But so we built a program. We tested it out. We threw 20 veterans into the pilot. We took a number of veterans. You know, we had to do a lot of soul searching and trying to understand that veterans aren't all equal. They are not. They're just normal people, but they're not all equal. Some can study, some can't. Some have capability, some don't. It doesn't mean you get there's not a cardboard cutout you get. So people are very different. That's fine. That's people to people, right? But trying to understand their innate capabilities, what they're naturally good at, and then how that fits in the cybersecurity world, what education they need, what experience do they need, what courses and micros and industry certifications that the industry wants, and that is relevant, and that me as a leader in the industry, when I look at a resume, I've got 6 seconds to look at the resume. If I don't see what I need to see, that resume's in the bin. And you want me to go to page 2. That's what you need to drive me to do, is go, oh, okay, he's got the certs, and he's got, yep, good, he's over this pile, or she, he's over this pile. And we discount, because we haven't got the time to go through so much data, effectively.
Yeah.
So we built a program about it.
Yeah. So something is that the capability imprint that we spoke about before, or is that something different?
Yeah, that's part of it. That came later.
Yeah. So how do you find that veterans compare to like other cybersecurity professionals that you'd see? What sort of skills do they tend to have that are different? I know you said that they're very different because, you know, they're people as well. But what sort of skills do you see that really stand out that veterans bring to the table?
Well, first of all, you have to understand that veterans are mature age students, right? Yeah, they're not 19-year-olds. And they're not graduate age, generally. A lot of the veterans that we see, that I see in my business in Solve Transition, are guys that have been out for anywhere from 6 months to 20 years that want to get into cyber. They just have an opportunity. So we get it. You can imagine the experience, they each bring to the party. So fundamentally, what we did to answer that question to broadly bring out this capability imprint, we work with a company called Ability Map, and we're very close partners with Ability Map. And Ability Map have developed a capability assessment, or a capability imprint is what we call it, that highlights and looks at the innate or the natural capabilities that military veterans have. So we did all this study while I was in DXC. We did a whole program there, and we looked at all our veterans, and we looked at our cyber team, and we looked at our high performers and our cyber veterans and all those guys. And then we collated that data, and we put out a Ability Map framework, or rather Ability Map offer to them to do an assessment. So guys like yourself could have done an assessment, for example, and that's spat out literally in real time the high level capabilities that you as a military veteran have been assessed on. So it's independently assessed. It's not a person's opinion. You've actually, gone through like a kind of liken it to a Briggs Meyer sort of assessment or some sort of psycho stuff. It's more of a space. And we also had graciously the Abilities Map database, and they'd done a very similar thing in another one of the big fours, and they had a massive database in that space. So we're able to leverage and understand what good looked like in the veteran space and what good looks like in the cyber space, and then pull that together on the soft skill. I guess is what you're talking about when you come back to the skills that they bring to the table. It's things like responsibility, working with words, working with numbers, innovation, resilience, coping with pressure. There's a few of them like working in teams, being accountable. Those sorts of soft skill areas are highly developed in military veterans because they have to do that. Interestingly enough, emotional intelligence comes out really strong, as does resilience. You kind of expect resilience to be there, but emotional intelligence, and you think, but when you actually fold that back and you look at it, these men and women have been operating in a very siloed area, right? It's you go on base, you live on base effectively, or within the community. You're not interacting on a daily basis with the community friends or that business operation space you would normally see in a corporation or small business. So they're very in tune to each other. They know, they work daily, they live, eat, shower with each other at the start, so they get to know how to read, manage, and lead and learn from people, their cohort. And then when they go into past their IATs or the initial employment training into their units, they learn how to operate as a unit within the unit, or as a team within the team, within the broader military framework that sits around that. So they're very cognizant and very aware of their surroundings and the people and how to manage and talk to people in their environment. So their emotional intelligence is extremely high.
Right.
And their resilience, obviously, you'd expect to be extremely high as well. So what we've seen from the studies, that's reflected that. And some amazing outcomes. Like, I remember when Mike Erlin from Ability Map and I sat down and he pulled up the stats and he said, hey, look at this. And I was just gobsmacked. I said, I'm like, we're talking about 168 at the top, 168% stronger in some areas than the civilian counterpart in the same job, like in the cybersecurity professional space. And I mean, it does vary. It goes down to around the 20s and the 30s and 40s, but fundamentally, some of the higher stuff was there. But then you look at what they can actually bring to market as a resource, you might say, and they're so undervalued. We're only sort of shifting that way now, and so we've got some challenges, of course, the way the geopolitical space is. So things like you might come out as a PV, a positive vetted military veteran, or one or two, that's a massive advantage to you. But it's the veteran that has to live with it, right? So you actually have to. It's the veteran the military service member, I guess, that gets assessed and lives by the rules and regulations of an NV1, 2, or 3 or baseline. They're the ones who can't go overseas unless they tell everybody they're going overseas, and gets interrogated and all that kind of stuff, have to clean criminal record. Not that they go committing crime, but there's all these things they have to abide by. Yet the bigger companies and the industry takes that for advantage and goes, hey, I need a PV or I need an NV2. Thank you. We'll take you to the job, underpay you, not pay you for your clearance. So we're trying to change the narrative on that. It's you who had the clearance. You're the one who should be rewarded for it, not the company or the business you work for. So it's a bit of a challenge around that. And besides that, they're the only people that we have assessed for a clearance. And what I mean by that is that just because you get a clearance in Civilian Street doesn't mean you probably should have a clearance.
Right. Okay.
Right? So just because you have a clearance, or, your company of choice that you work for or sponsors you for a clearance, you may not be the type of person that should have a clearance. Now,
yeah,
I don't say that loosely either. In my background across law enforcement and policing and the like, we've seen a lot of people. Of course, I worked into Ethical Standards Department of Victoria Police for a bit. We've got bad coppers. We've got a lot of them are good coppers. We have got a bad bunch, right? But the military is no different. It's a social construct. But the community's got a whole heap worse. The community's got a whole mixed bag of people, right? So if you're going to throw clearances out there, say to give me clearance, like a police check, police spare me. But you bring these people in, they've been assessed, they've been working the environment, their head straight on, they have a motivation to be there. So their clearances, it means more to them, but it also should mean more to the sovereignty of it.
Yeah, it's funny you say the soft skills stuff as well, just going back to that. It's something that me and Max harp on a million different times. Like, you can be the best hacker in the world, but if you can't talk to someone and work in a team, you're going to be hard to hire. And it's about, being able to work into a team, communicating. Communicating is a massive thing in cyber. We've said it a million times. If you can't communicate an issue to executives, it's going to be tough.
There is that. There's also it's not just the comms, and I totally agree with what you're saying. It's also the way you interact. Like you can be like a lot of our guys, when I was at DC, a lot of our teams, I've never met personally most of the people that worked for me. We're all remote, effectively. And it brings another why government agencies hire a cyber person, but have to be on site, but they outsource the rest of the cyber work and everybody's remote. It's like, what? Okay. But in that space with comms, you've got to learn to communicate online like this. You've got to articulate the message across to me. Like you might start talking technology to me. I'll go to a certain level. I won't go to the zeros and ones. And then I'll say, stop, clarify that, bring that up to, dumb it down for me. Bring me on the journey with you. And this is why we find in technology especially that those technical people have a ceiling of leadership. They go up to certain, that's it. It's not because they're not good at the job. They're great at what they've done and what they can do. Is they can't bridge that gap of communication and leadership into the leadership space, so into your C levels or your boards and the like.
Yeah.
So they seal and kind of bottom out or top out, you might say. And they're very good at what they do, and they know a lot. And then it's working out as a leader how to harness that information, draw it from them. I say you kind of try to lift them up to give me dial it down to me. Give me what the problem is.
Yeah.
Don't start going off on a tangent about, zeros and ones and the vulnerability and the risk and all this sort of stuff. I understand that. You have to help me support you.
Yeah.
And that's what a leadership position in cyber absolutely is all about. It's how do I support you be successful? Because your success is team success, is my success, is the business success.
Yeah, absolutely.
Neil, we just wanted to get your opinion. We've asked a few of our other guests that have come on about what their recommendations are for people who are looking to get into security or into cybersecurity. Just we could actually take this a cool route from a civilian standpoint, fresh out of uni, versus someone who is maybe coming straight out of service as well. What are the similarities and the differences there?
I think there's any differences, honestly. They're different people in terms of they come from different areas, and they come they're not apples for apples, right? They're completely different fruit, you might say. The way I look at it is this: so let's bring it back a bit, right?
Sure.
So, what is cybersecurity? What is cybersecurity about? And we've had this conversation for years. And some people say it's about technology, and they'll charge down that path. And some people will say it's about people, and I'll charge down that path. And there's no real conjecture or solid state on that, because there's even an argument about what are we calling information security compared to data security, and data privacy. Here we go. So, but I think cyber is being tagged as everything. It's like the cyber space. So with that in mind, I look at it, and I've got some really good mates that are CISOs that have vehemently opposed to some of the things that I do say with them, but it's opinions, and that's fine. It's great to have opinion, because you then shape the shape the outcome. I look at cybersecurity as a business risk, and I'll tell you why. Businesses innately and inherently use technology to run their business, whether it's finance or whether it's email. Businesses don't operate without a degree of technology within their infrastructure. They may have server banks, big cloud. They may have, all the top stuff like you expect government and defense and banks to have, or you might be a small to medium and you've got a computer and you're using Google, tools and Drive and stuff. But it's a technology base, right? So using technology as an enabler. But fundamentally, if there's a risk in anything in your business, right, it affects the business. So whether it's a physical risk or an injury risk or a health and safety risk or a risk of supply and demand through shipping or a risk that comes or permeates through the technology, it's all affecting the business. So the way you lay it out is you push up until you get to the top key stabilizer, which is business risk. So you can talk cyber's about technology. I'd argue it's not, because what's a policy got to do with technology? What's GRC got to do with technology in that space? Because you have these GRC guys, because you have tech guys, and they kind of mix a bit, but there's different fields. ISO, if I'm sitting here as a firewall architect or something like that, a fire engineer or an endpoint engineer or vulnerability guy, I'm not looking at the policy.
No.
Like I'm not looking at, ISO 27001 or NIST or anything like that. I'm tunnel vision on what I'm doing, and, if it's in vulnerabilities, what's my patching looks like, what are my vulnerabilities today, what's my priorities, etc. So we bring it up to that space, right? So if you think about it at that space and you think about the entry space to it, it's really, really simple, but it's really categorized by what you want and what you think cyber for you is, because it's such a very complex industry. So what we do at Solve Transitions, we take the veteran, and the same thing goes for the non-veteran individual, and we run them through an assessment, like a day in the life of every tower that we have.
Yeah.
So if you come to me and say, hey, I'm kind of interested in pen testing, then we run you through all these towers, this deck, and you sit there and it's a day in the life of, and you come 90% of them come back to me and say, I don't like pen testing. I actually know what it is now.
Yeah.
Right? Not me. So, hey, but I like that firewall stuff, or that network engineering stuff, or I like that vulnerability stuff, or that SOC stuff. So that's really powerful, because what we've actually done is we've saved their career by putting them on a pathway that they're going to be, again, they're going to use their innate capabilities to be successful there. But also they're going to be able to be successful because they have a drive to actually achieve that. They like it. I mean, I'm not going to do a job I don't like for start, right? No. But understanding that security is so, like, you've all these towers you've got in the business that operate concurrently but together, that have those nuances and touch points. You really need to sort of look and go, where in the security landscape would I fit or would I like to get my career going? So what we do from that point is, once you come back and you say, hey, this is what I want to do, this is what I'm interested in, then we build a pathway for you specifically for that tower of security. So if you came back and said, hey, I want to do cloud, we go, right, we're on a cloud certification roadway. We're going to run down that roadway with cloud until you get the micro-credential and the industry certification to be able to be employable in that space. So you have enough knowledge and there's some experiences behind it we'll talk about in a sec. But if you were going down the cloud but endpoint protection was your thing, then you're on the wrong track.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the micro-credentials that run within Fortinet and Palo Alto and all our vendor land people, right? The people who make the technology, build the technology, are embedded with all these industries and businesses. They're the driver's licenses that you should be seeking as a new starter.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that, the analogy I give it and why I call it, and I branded a driver's license, is like a car license. We all have a car license, or we aspire to get a car license, right? We can drive any car in that license category on the road.
Yeah.
So you can jump into my Hilux 4-wheel drive manual, and then you can jump into a Tesla and go, what in the world I just did? But fundamentally, you had the driver's license to drive on the road, to drive the vehicle. You just need to understand how the nuances of that machinery work. So if you go into Fortinet and do the NSC, the whole NSC4, it's the professional standard for network engineering and firewall area, and get that micro credential, you can sit on a PC, for example, and drive that whole system effectively for the business that employed you to do that. It's great, fantastic. But if you come into like a DXC, for example, and we have multiple clients with different firewalls, etc., then we haven't trained you across, but you still have your driver's license, right? You can still step into it. I've hired countless veterans just with NEC4 or the firewall network spec from, or micro credential from Fortinet, because we get them in, we know that they know how to drive the machinery. It's just that they now need to learn how to drive the Palo stuff and the nuances and difference in that technology. And then you might go to a client with Palo, and then, you know, they might say to you, hey, can you come over here for Checkpoint or Juniper, etc. And you go, well, okay. And you take that skill and that understanding with you, and you build upon your skill sets like that. So that's been hugely successful, but you've got to get on that pathway first.
Yeah, I totally agree. That sounds like a very useful thing. Maybe it would have been something that I would have liked to have done before I started my career, but I'm sort of lucky in the case where I've slotted into. I really, really enjoy it. I am curious. I've got a friend who is looking into some cloud certifications, and from what I've sort of said, in my opinion, cloud, the fundamentals of cloud are quite similar across the board, just like what you've been saying like a Palo firewall. All of them are sort of quite similar. Are the Microsoft certs going to be enough for you to have that knowledge to move to like an AWS sort of service, or vice versa? Or are those ones in particular, are going to only help you on one sort of stream for cloud? And if not, do you have any that you recommend?
Okay. Hey, cloud's interesting, right? SAP HANA Full is now emerging, and that's got a massive move in it. So there's a lot of government agencies that now have to move to HANA Full.
Yep.
We don't have anybody. We have no one nowhere near the amount of people qualified in the cloud space for SAP HANA Full. The job in cloud, I consider SAP HANA having a look at that space right now. Clouds, we all talk about, I guess, cloud security it's different to on-prem because it's cloud, but it's fundamentally the same, because the way traffic integrates or traverses the network is exactly the same for whether it's Azure or whether it's AWS or whatever it is. So you've got those big cloud providers, right? I want to talk just about Microsoft to sort of keep it within the barrel, right? If you wanted to go down cloud and you had a desire to go down the Azure space for cyber, in that cyber security certification area, go for it. Absolutely, you've got 100% my backing for it. Go for it. It's fantastic. If you're going to transition into a job that's then Amazon, the nuances, like the driver's license, are still there. It is the theory that you have learnt the way it works. Cloud will work only one way. You get into that space and you're driving a different vehicle, so to speak, but you still have your driver's license.
Yep.
So you do that transition course into the Amazon space, and you pick up. So this is the kicker, right? You actually pick up better skills by doing that than you do in one area. You can say be an MS guy for the rest of your life, and you'll only ever know that, right? So anything outside the world for you on that's a bit foreign. But if you can pick up those skill sets and those certifications across and learn that transitional space, you're going to come out with a greater, wider, broader vision. So if he talks about military-based arcs of fire, where we put a machine gun in the base, left and right of arc, if you put that, you're broadening your arcs out. You're actually broadening them right out to encompass more of the knowledge base and your experience base. So more power to you. My advice is you go down one track first. Don't scattergun it, because you need to get resilient and competent in one area. And once you're in that area, the businesses that you work for will shape you up for others if they so need it. And then you've got all the support networks out there through both LinkedIn and all the hackathons and all that sort of stuff, the whole shadow world of IT, for example, that you've been speaking about, Flynn spoke about. You've got all that support there, and you've got other guys like Gerald Auger in the States who just run so much really cool cyber stuff in the technology space. And there's a lot of resources around that you guys can tap into. That's outside of those MS, Amazon sort of spaces. So broaden the horizon on it. But don't be afraid to go down one pathway. But be sure it's the pathway you want to go down on, about what I want to do, not the technology stack. So There are some really good and expensive courses out there, like the SAND stuff and etc. And that's more power to those areas and people who can afford that sort of stuff. But fundamentally, if you can't, there's no difference between going down an Amazon route or a SAP HANA route or a Microsoft route. It's just that you need a good starting. Pick your car, right? Yeah. It's like when you play Grand Theft Auto. Pick the car, stay with the car, build. Oh, actually, World of Tanks. I'm a World of Tanks nut. Okay. I'm an ex-tanky. Don't know under what. I pick the German line of tanks. I follow the German line of tanks to everything. I get my butt whooped sometimes too, because not every German tank was a great tank, but I know that technology and I know how that works. And then I progress into other areas of that game to play with the US and so on and so forth. But I think, you get the picture about stay on your lane, learn your lane, and then transition as you go across. Don't scattergut or jump all the time. You'll have enough opportunity in this landscape. There's so many jobs out there, and people are willing to pick you up to push you across multiple different sectors of the business.
Yeah. That's a fantastic answer, I think. It's I mean, having that fundamental understanding and that using that to then propel yourself, 100%. That's definitely a good way to go.
What would you say that? How about like changing between? Because obviously GRC and tech can be very, very different. And what I say to people that in GRC, because I'm a more GRC focused role, having that tech ability is still going to make you go a long way. Because being able to, properly communicate that with, if you're going to talk to a tech guy, and I'm sure you've experienced this before, if you talk to a tech guy and you try to explain a technical thing and you get it wrong, you're going to piss them off a lot of the time. So, so I feel like having that transition from tech to GRC is a lot easier. Going the other way around might be a bit more difficult, GRC to tech. What's your opinion on that? How would you say doing a transition between the two? Because they're obviously very, very different compared to, AWS versus Azure.
Yeah. Well, different world, right? Because that's the technology world. You're talking about cyber tech, and now you're talking about compliance, risk, and governance. So it is interesting, right? So I've had a lot of military veterans, especially the senior guys, come to me. They don't feel they want to go into or need to go into the technical space. And this is a really interesting issue, right? I've had these multiple conversations. We're starting to get a really mature vision or viewpoint on this space. Because I was a GRC guy too. I did my CISM. I didn't go into the CIS space, for example, because I didn't have the skill set. And I still don't. And I still don't have that drive to be, a technical person. It's not me. It's not within my DNA. So I liken the GRC space because that's been sort of the soft skills around policy and risk management, your frameworks, your audits, your Essential 8 and all that stuff, right? There's a bit of we throw the GRC term around a bit loosely right now. I think it's going to tighten up in the next couple of years. But what you tend to do is you're non-technical, you're GRC, and that's really not the case. You do need to understand and have a working knowledge of technology, landscapes, how infrastructure works, how the mapping works, your architecture works. And you need to be able to sit in front of a PowerPoint when you have an architect saying, this is the architecture we're proposing for this project, for example. And you need to be able to go, okay, where's that? Why is that not there? You need to be able to have enough education knowledge to apply an overview on it. Because a lot of the GRC guys are brought into these conversations in the project world, for example, to provide advisory on that. Because GRC, funnily enough, is seen as a big consultancy space, and it's absolutely not. It can be, but it's not all about consultancy. So you might sit in a project or program meeting and they throw a project architecture up of this proposed infrastructure. If you don't have the skill set to identify and ask the questions, you should be asking a lot of questions as a GRC person, because a lot of this stuff is using new technology that you may not be aware of. There's some new tech every year comes out, especially in cyber. And some of it's untested, and they throw that up and you go, ooh, where's that? Oh, that's old school. That's incorporated into technology. Okay, great. Now I'm learning. I'm applying some oversight to it.
Yeah.
So the way I sort of see it is, and certainly my experience is that you really should understand the fundamentals of cybersecurity and architecture and infrastructure, etc., to be a good GRC person, right?
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot of tech guys who've gone up to GRC, and they're very good. I've got a lot of friends down in Canberra, for example, that have done that transition and found it to be very beneficial. The thing I would say, though, GRC's really now pushing into this policy space a lot more because we have the Essential 8 stuff, we're doing all those maturity assessments, we're doing the IRAPs and all that sort of stuff. So the policies need to apply. The fact is the policies can be loose and unregulated in terms, and what I mean by that is that we put a policy in for something, a password policy, for example. We don't review that. Like, does your business review it? Does your service provider review it? Who's got the liability to manage your policy, right? Now, if your policy is 2 years old, it hasn't been reviewed, your policy is dead in the water.
Yeah.
Now, if your insurance company knew that you hadn't done it, hadn't done the review, then the insurance company can take issue with you on that you're not doing your GRC due diligence and governance effectively in managing those documents, because documents are the framework that rule the way your information transitions across the networks, etc. Yeah. So there should be a document of how things are done and why things are done and the rules that apply to what you do. Fundamentally, you don't go back into them every 2 years, for example, and re-sign your policy as an updated policy or update your policies on the technology stacks that you've implemented in the last 2 years, for example. So there's risks being created by that gap. When you talk about things like Essential 8 or ISO certification and NIST and the frameworks there, I all talk about, NIST has grown up quite quickly, and obviously for good reason, and ISO is kind of, doing its thing. We have IS18, I think, still in Queensland. There's multiple. There's so many. We sort of talk about the ones that sort of we know about. But there are many other frameworks in the world that are as good, if not better, than these frameworks. But they're only as good as the people that manage, put them in, and police them. Yeah. I'll give you an example. When I started this energy company that I was working with, they put in a new DLP system, a data loss prevention system.
Yeah.
As a ForcePoint kit, ForcePoint's got a really good DLP. Totally rate it. Totally good team, totally rate their DLP, probably best in the world. Without any proprietary stuff or off-market stuff. Anyway, and as I arrived, I was starting to integrate and configure this new DLP system. And so I was sort of deer in the headlights going, okay, we're doing a DLP. And a DLP sat at about $250,000, right? So they implemented it, they configured it to operationalize, and away it went. And it's just lit up like a Christmas tree. Like there was rats and mice running everywhere. It's like kicking the doors open to a drug den. You've got people running everywhere. Rats, dogs, cats, the whole thing. Right?
Yeah.
So how do you pull that into some sort of sense? You need a policy suite. You need to embed your business into that change. And what we did, and this is my learned experience, is that we didn't do any of that. The business hadn't done any of that when I rocked in there. They just put a new piece of technology in it and went, oh, here it is. And they turned it on and we went, wow. We had $50 million in credit cards just going out the window, the data, open source data going out to a provider every month, I think it was. Names, numbers, value, CBV, the whole thing, the whole scope in clear text going out to a service provider. Now, that's PCI compliance for a start. PCI compliance.
Yeah.
But to bring that in, like that's a big world of GRC space, right? That whole policy suite, how do you manage your business? You've got to take that business along for that ride. Like you should not ever just integrate new technology without bringing your business along with that ride. Because we had, for example, we had that happening. We had 3 websites being run on our service we didn't know about. Now, you can't sanction the people if you don't have a rule book, right? When you're breaking the law. Well, what law? Exactly. You don't have a policy on it, so you can't take action against the employee for doing something that none of you are aware of and none of you had a rule book on. And that's where we find that the ROI for those sorts of technologies that come into the space, they won't pick up. So it costs us about $1.5 million in 2 years of time to actually pick that up to being a really robust system. Now, a good GRC person will come in and go, okay, yes, nice piece of new technology, stop. Where's all the componentry around your policy changes? What have you got in place?
Yeah.
That's a really valid thing for GRC people to do, but you'll need to understand how the technology sort of integrates and works. I don't need to know the zeros or ones. I just need to know what you want to do with it, why you bring it in, what you're expecting. Like, a lot of people get sold the dream. Buy this is it's a dream. You put it in, shoot up, you go, no, it's a nightmare. Look what it's doing to my system. It's crashing this, it's doing that. I've got 500 damn tickets out of the damn thing. People can't operate MS Teams and sky's falling in. You go, well, that just cost us $650,000 in 2 weeks. Actual effort. I mean, you've really got to stand back and, as a GRC person, be that guiding figure to guide them through that project and sort of support them. So GRCs are very much a leadership space, and much like the comm space, like we don't do a lot in the comm space. When you talk about comms, when you have a breach, we see some CEOs getting up, making an absolute dick of themselves because they just don't know what the message is. They've got some lawyer saying, say this, nothing happened. You go, point in case, Qantas goes down, the whole airport goes down. Oh, gee, wonder what that was. Oh, no, this is a glitch. Oh, really? Really? Okay. We don't want to panic the world. Airplanes falling out of the sky, that sort of thing. I get it. But the messaging, and like if you have, like Qantas, for example, and I'm only taking Qantas out of context, so it's nothing against Qantas. But if you have business like that and your flights go down or, the systems crash, what elevates? So can you tell me, when you get breached, what goes up in rate or the number of? What do you think that might be?
Questions for the business.
Yeah, questions
What's that?
to the business.
Yeah. What's going on? What is looking close? Yeah.
It's all emails, right? And it's all full of hate. Spice and hate, right? It's spicy. But what happens when you go down? Have you implemented a comms plan? Your incident breach comms plan? Do you have a comms plan? Oh no, we don't. What's that?
Yeah.
And
it's funny, actually. I've done a lot of work in that, and we tell people set up a hero page, dedicate like a frequency at which you're going to go onto that hero page and give updates on it. I think Red Cross actually had a data breach, and they were commended. It was the opposite. They were so good at updating about it that they were commended for how well they communicated with the community. And then you look at something like Medibank, comparatively, or Optus, where they have the initial setup page. Yeah, we're going to update you here, and then bang, it's nothing. And look at where they both are now. So it's terrible.
Yeah. I mean, the washouts not finished with those guys yet either. No.
Oh no, Medibank, especially recently. That's going to be shocking.
Yeah, I did see some stuff on that it kind of sat me in the seat really. Oh, really? That's how much of a percentage of your revenue you put on security, and that's how many people you got? Yeah, I think you burned.
Yeah. I think
that's place too. Yeah, I think the comms, it's when it goes wrong, right? So in the policing space or the emergency services space, I won't call it first responders because I hate the name, and it's US.
Yeah.
We don't have first responders in Australia. We have emergency services and police. Don't even start me on that one because that would fire me up. But when we have an incident, it's all comms based, right? So the three services. So we have a truck crash, ambos and the fires and the coppers will go, right? And SES might cruise along, depending on what resources we need in that environment. But the comms are going. What ramps up, it's all the communications. And cyber incident's no incident. It's an incident, right? It's a different type of incident, but it's an incident. Yeah. So comms is paramount because unless you have communications and a plan to run by and understanding how each division, section, and area communicates with each other, who's the communicating, what's the source of truth, etc., you're going to fail in your mission to actually quell that incident.
Yeah.
If you're a big business and you're relying upon many customers, the phone is going to run hot and you're going to lose a lot of them because you can't communicate. So when your comms plan, you need that third-party call center that's sitting quietly in wherever, and when it goes pear-shaped, you activate that contract. They have all these scripts ready, and they have the messaging line for the type of breach you're going to.
Yep.
But not many people do that. That's just one thing that people just go, oh, what are you talking about? Oh, it's all about 0 to 1s and saving, ransomware, get back our data. Really?
Yeah.
Because, like I said, business risk, right? Business risk. What's a ransomware, and you're locked out of your systems and you're trying to survive that technology space, but then you've got the rest of the businesses in crisis. How are you managing the rest of the business? So GRC people with some experience are very good in that space. And look, that attracts the kind of person that is like the CEO, the leadership guy who thinks that, look, I'm very good at leading this sort of stuff. And it kind of is. But I hazard a guess, if you haven't had that experience, like you haven't run those sort of scripts before and that sort of practice, I'd suggest you try to get into some teams, environments, and do those simulations.
Yeah. It's funny that we're having this conversation because, well, I don't think Max was involved in the conversation, but we have a friend who's very, very technical. And I was basically explaining these concepts to him. He was basically like, oh, when are we going to start just implementing the technology rather than all this regulation? And I'm like, No, and I was trying to explain to them how it shouldn't just be a checklist of you have this, you don't have this. You need to contextualize stuff, and it's different from business to business, and it shouldn't just be like you're going through like an order and going, oh, this is here, this is not, and it's black and white. It's not how it works. It's different for every organization, and you need to actually have that contextualization to, you know, apply it to different environments. It's just not black and white like a lot of people seem to think.
Not this area. It's like I said before at the start. It's very complex. It's a life and death of the business, and not just your business too. It could be life and death of somebody else's business, one of your customers or clients.
Yep.
You only got to look at the space now. The DISP is it's been reshaped, and DISP is being very valid right now. So a lot of businesses moving to that defence, those defence levels, and they need to. If they don't, they would be out of business. Now, if you're out of business and you're a big service supplier to defence, every subcontractor you have is out of business.
Yeah, it's bad. Especially, I mean, look how many supply chain attacks are happening nowadays. It's everywhere. Basically, every breach that we see, it's, this one supply chain attack. And, you know, the government's tightening up on it. CPS 230 should do a half-decent job of addressing issues with this and, you know, supply chain issues. But it's always going to be a problem that it's so hard to manage. But we've got to be able to do it, I suppose.
Yeah, 100%.
What's your space? You have you got your space with Navy, right? With the subs.
Yeah.
What's your space? That is going to be very interesting about how they lift up and do that. The level of security in that submarine operations.
Yep.
Battlefield operations, you might say.
And there's talk about acquiring autonomous ships as well, right? That are going to be unmanned ships for the Navy. I think that was a thing that the government was looking at. They were looking at purchasing some, I believe.
Mm.
And you know that in that case, you know, you really hope that's going to be you know, cyber's going to be a big consideration there, because you know that's a pretty much worst case scenario. You have you lose control of those ships, or someone else is able to, you know, manipulate them, and it's chaos.
They fire it back at you. You know? Yeah, it's they're trying to auto like I guess by giving you a remote, like drone everything basically. Yeah. I don't know. They've always said the next big war will be rock and stone, and effectively because technology will burn out in 3 days, and then it'll be all, you know, back to sticks and stones, so to speak. We'll see what happens.
Yeah,
so, a lot of really cross those sort of technology, so it's interesting to see them come out. I have opinions on them, of course, because I mean, it's tanky, right? And so you see Ukraine stuff, so I'm like, what about look at their tactics and go, yeah, okay. They have a hatch for a reason, right? Yeah. Are you?
Yeah. No, I worry that we'll find some technology that's too advanced. Imagine a kind of a modern day version of an atomic bomb, not that sort of context, but something worse than that. That, you know, if another war kicks off, use that. Then the next, there's a saying, I don't know if it's confirmed, a saying from Einstein that I know not what the World War III will be fought with, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones, because of how, you know, extreme there might be that we find.
Yeah, I know. It's an interesting world, right? Especially certainly now, like certainly right now. There's a lot of gesture. I don't think anybody's got it right. I just think it's a moving and growing beast.
Yeah.
Let's just hope diplomacy resolves a lot of the rubbish. But I just think social media's got so much to play in the negative messaging across everything. People seem to behave badly behind their anonymity.
It brings up a question as well as how fragile is the, you know, if someone's creating, like, what if someone makes a deep fake at the wrong time at the wrong place and is able to cause a stir in social media? You know, how fragile, you know, could something like that, how quickly could that create a big issue? And it comes down to people might not be very, I don't know, educated in what is possible in AI as well, especially.
Yeah.
Now, Neil, you did mention in the in our correspondence as well something about about the shadow market. Do you want to talk a little bit about that one?
Yeah, okay. So when we talk about shadow market, we talk about it as a recruitment market. Around about 80%, and yes, it's unconfirmed, and there's conjecture because nobody can really measure it. They seem to think, this is not my opinion, it's the opinion of others, more smarter people than I are doing this sort of stuff, that 80% of cybersecurity is shadow market. And I kind of believe that too, because I don't think I've been tapped. I've been tapped on the shoulder for the last 6 jobs, I think, in cyber. I haven't actually gone to apply. Now, the reason I say that is because this is an opportunity for you, if you're coming into cyber, to start to get your network built up. And I harp about this all the time. You're only as good, or your network is as your net worth.
Yes.
So what I mean by is, if you're not networking in the right network personally, building that reputation, or building that thought leadership, or building that network out and having those conversations and reaching out and being bold and brave and doing those sorts of things, then your career aspects are going to toilet bad, tank out. If I know, like, and try, I'll give you an example. The other day, last week, one of my colleagues I used to work with, I rang her, had a conversation about a bit of disk work that's going on and with another client, and she referred me off to one of her network people, who she knows, likes, and trusts. And so, me liking and trusting, say, Flynn, and Flynn refers Max to me for a role, then I trust Flynn's opinion, and therefore I don't like and trust or have that affiliate with Max. So I'm tapping on the shoulder for a role. Or you're referred to me. I get a lot of referrals coming in weekly. I sometimes feel like a recruiter, but I'm not. So you've got to build that network up, and you've got to be that know, like, and trust. And if you're talking about the business world, people like to do business, or will do business with people they know, like, and trust. I'd rather do business with you guys that I know, like, and trust, than somebody I don't know, or I don't like, and I don't trust.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of those examples out there. So when we talk about the shadow market, what we're trying to do, what we're trying to explain here effectively, is that you can watch Seek, and you can watch the marketplace, but 80% of people are tapped on the shoulder for cyber.
Yeah.
That just means your network is way more important than your resume.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So resumes are a sales document, sales pitch, right? That's your sales document. Like that capability imprint that I spoke about earlier, that's your evidence doc. So you can go in and say, hey, look, this is how I purport to be. Here's my sales doc. I've got an interview. Great. But actually in that interview, you may present that ability map imprint and say, look, I've been independently assessed as being highly competent and capable in these areas, and this is the area that you're looking for in the security space. So, great piece of evidence to have for you. So anybody's wanting to do that, then reach out on LinkedIn or, whatever. Just try and get hold of me, and we'll share that out to you. We talk offline about it too, if you like. So that shadow market is really important to understand, is that not every job in cyber is on there. And a lot of the jobs you'll see, and we can get into this right now, a lot of jobs you'll see will say, hey, you need these certifications, or it alludes to a certification. I guarantee the CISSP will be there, right?
Pretty much 100% of the time.
Copy it. Yeah. Now, do you actually know what the CISSP represents across the deck in the certification space, or the CISM, which is the thing for you and I? It's more that, leadership, GRC type qual, non-technical. They're the cream of the crops, right?
Yeah.
In industry certification. That's it. That's the best known and well-regarded certifications globally in the space. And I'll say, oh, you need that, or we're alluding to that. Well, do you? Endpoint guy or vulnerability guy, do you need that? Be nice to have, and instead we can train you and get you certified in that space. But you need those 5 years experience, right, to actually qualify for those certifications. And you need to do your CPE points every year to actually manage up and keep them alive. But fundamentally, what we're talking about is every time you go out to, and Seek's changed a little bit, you would see this, and it would really demoralise a lot of people from going into security, because they see these qualifications. There's no way they can attain, because you need 5 years certification to do it, right? You need that experience signed off by your previous employees to do it, or to have that certification. Or you can get your associate one, which means you've got a couple of years to, fill the gaps, etc. Now, the qualification's great, and when I look at it, if you've done the certification, you've done the exam, or you pass the exam, to me, that shows that you've got a level of intellectual accountability to do it. You understand it, so you understand the environment. So I would look at hiring you just on the basis that you've done the exam and you passed. Whether you get the certificate, I would help you to get that certificate in the future by giving you those relevant experience sectors. But to demoralise and gut people out there when you see what we used to call the unicorn, and you've probably heard of that terminology, 10 years and all this stack of stuff, and you look at it as a securities leader, you look at it and go, A, that's a $400,000 job, not a $100,000 job. B, that doesn't exist.
Yep.
Those technologies compete, and those skill sets and levels that you're actually asking for to be that level of skill can't happen. Like physically can't happen. And so I look at them, and as a lot of other people go, the Muppets that write this stuff have no idea about what you're actually asking for. So we've gone to call it Pegasus, right? So you want the Pegasus of the world, you don't pay for them. So, the confusion is not unreal. The confusion is very realistic, but for people who are trying to get in the industry, that is just rubbish. And that's wrong. And I get a little bit ticked off about it because it just demoralizes people trying to get into the industry. So people go and do something else and never look back because they feel they'll never get into it. And of late, I don't know what is going on, but I need a new starter. I need a new person to come in. You must have a degree. Spare me with your damn degrees. Honestly. If you came to the cyber degree, I can't employ you. Full stop. Like, what do you got? You're an undergrad or a graduate. You're coming to me. I cannot put you on the tools. You do not have anything for me. Right? I appreciate you've spent $60,000, $70,000, $80,000. And look, as a professor, I get hammered for this when I say this stuff. But you come to me with a Cert 4 or a bachelor's degree in cybersecurity, you are literally unemployable, and you've wasted all that time and all that money on looking to be employable when somebody's led you down the path to saying, hey, go and get a degree. It's not a teacher's degree or a nurse's degree where you actually do the practice and you get the experience and you come into the environment. These degrees aren't worth the paper they're printed on. They go into a technology stack that is at least 5 to 7 years old, which doesn't exist anymore. They don't go and give you the micro-credentials to give you the driver's license. And even if they did give you the micro-credential, right? What's the point of doing the rest of the degree when you've got a job already with that micro-credential?
Yeah.
So, there's challenges in that space. I can't put you on the deck. At least you can't. But if you go off and do the Fortinet NSE4 stuff or the Palo Alto stuff or the CompTIA, not so much CompTIA, but CompTIA is a great, framework to go down, that sort of thing, then you come to me employable because you can actually be put on the tools.
Yeah.
If you came to me with Trend Micro Endpoint or XDR and MDR certification, I can put you on the tools today. If you come out with a degree, I can't. It's like coming out of the military. Officers generally come out and say, I've got an MBA. I go, great. Yep. Oh, but I've got an MBA. Yeah. This is admin, right? Not business ownership, business admin. It's a waste of time and effort. In my view, if you're coming out, you should be looking at something more tactical and more meaningful to the industry. And unfortunately, the industry's been led by, the universities. And no, all power to them. It's nothing against the university, but they're misguided. So this degree we built, for example, is we will give you 1 full year, 8 credit points off for your micro-credentials. Gone as a military veteran, right? We'd also RPL your service. So if you've got 5 to 10 years, 5 years service and more, we would RPL, get that recognition prior learning. There's 2 years off your degree.
Yeah.
Right? Gone. You've already won that. And then if you work with us and get into an internship or a job, in that first 12 months, you would work in that job like you and like the three of us. We were working our normal job, learning what we're learning, doing what we're doing.
Yep.
We would look at that learning context and what you did and learned and have done and what you present, because you did do a presentation. The academic board, which I sit on, would govern that. I sit there and look at it in terms of, is what you have done real security? Like real security, right? Not just this rubbish we hear about, I only sat on endpoint and did that sort of stuff. You need more than that. You need to be across a few sectors, and you need to keep moving yourself forward. So you're literally doing a 2-year degree in 18 months at around about $24,000.
Yeah.
Right, but you're already certified and you're already working. So what does that mean for the younger person or the new starter? I think new starter's probably the best way to say it. Day one, you're on $100,000, for example. We'll just call it even, 100K, because you should be starting in cyber around about 80 to 100K mark. Anything under that, you've been ripped. I can tell you right now, I know what we charge, you've been ripped.
Yep.
You come in at 100K, you've got you and your mate starting at the same place. One's got a degree. He's got 3 years out of work.
Yep.
Like you're year 1, 100K, and then within that, go to year 2. He's year 2 second of the university. You've got your degree already, and you're on your increment raise. If you get an increment raise, so you're on another 100K, you're 200Ks. By the time you finish the 3 years, you've made $600,000 at a 100K base. You've been certified multiple times in the sector, and you've learned it. You've got all that 3 years experience. You've got your degree back in year 1, right? Old mate here, who's done his 3 degrees, comes out. He's so far behind 8 ball. So when we talk, and I know that some people go, oh yeah, but think of your superannuation just alone. Your superannuation that accumulates. Think of your leave. Think of the experience, your knowledge, your network that you've built up. This whole portfolio of being a cybersecurity person. That person hasn't even started. And when they do come to me, they come with me and say, hey, I got my degree. I go, great, go and do your micro credentials like I told you to do 3 years ago. So they got to go online and do their micro credentials. Then I give them a job. And then they're starting. So, for military veterans that are generally, either have a family or a young family or coming out of defence, a really important factor is to keep that momentum rolling if you want that degree space. But anybody in the military veteran space can apply for those degrees.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really, really good point. And it's something we brought up as well before, is that if you're going to just go for the degree and do it that path, it's, more power to you. You can, and, that's something that, it can work. It's not like it'll always work. It's not to say it will also never work, but it's important to make sure to upskill yourself while you're still at uni so you're not left behind, because coming out of uni with just the degree, not just ignoring the competitiveness as well at the moment with all of these people who have been told these, frankly, I'm going to embellish it a little bit, but lies about cybersecurity that get this degree and you can straight away just land a job. Universities have been peddling this for a few years now, saying it's such a massive job market, when really at the entry level, it's not. It's very competitive. It's super competitive. And if you want to do that degree at this point in time, if you don't try and get certs, experience, and push yourself to, try and involve yourself in the industry and build up your connections, you're going to be left behind. I think there's not really another way to say it.
Fast. Yeah, I think, look, you're right on. I think, it's horses of courses. I don't want to say don't get a degree, because I think degrees are very useful for a person that has an aptitude to do that and the capability. Not everybody can do a degree study. It doesn't mean you're a dumbass or anything. It just means you don't have that mindset. If you went to me when I was 21 and said do a degree, I'd laugh at you, right? And look where I am now and I go, how the hell did that happen? Like I went to Europe. I did a policing degree when I was in the police force, and then I got later in life when I'm in this space, I got awarded a adjunct professor, which is industry expert, and now I'm doing my masters and my PhD. I'll catch up, but and it's in research, so it's a completely different sort of thing, and it's in the agricultural cybersecurity space, which will be, and it's the first one in the world. So it's going to be another world first again. But fundamentally, I want to talk about experience, because I did see something on experience. So a lot of people tell me, how do we get experience? Like, I'm a new starter. How do I get experience when I can't get experience? Well, it's actually the experience you think you need that you're looking for. It's not they don't deconstruct the experience they're looking for cyber. So we're not talking about you need a job as an apprentice in security.
Yeah.
It's not that experience we're looking for. It's the experience in the immersive sector of security. And this is what I mean. So I want to, if people listen to you, want to really take note of this experience issues bugging the crap out of you. If you're going off on your cybersecurity journey and you're doing your micro-credentials or your pen testing stuff or so on, right? You're doing that education or you want to do it, right? You must immerse yourself in the broader security environment. And what I mean by that is you must hook up with the hackathons of the world. You must hook up with the immersive labs and the boot camps and the trainings and the late night sessions and the overseas conferences and all those sorts of things. That's the experience that we in the industry are looking for. Because we know you can't come to me in day one with 5 years of cyber experience, because this is day one, right? So what we're looking at is that immersive experience sector, right? Across being involved in those activities. And There are websites and there are people in the world, especially in YouTube land, so to speak, that talk about this a lot. There's a great big online community of cybersecurity people that just work in this space all the time, churning out, threat analysis and intelligence and outcomes and just this whole level of experience you can work into. And that's the experience we are looking for as a new starter. We're not looking for job experience. So take that away and sort of have a look at how that can happen and how you can get involved in it. Of course, any issues, just let us know.
Yep.
But that's the experience sector we're looking for. We're not looking for, I've got 5 years in the job. That comes when you've got 5 years in the job, right? And then again, you're not a new starter, right?
No. At 5 years, you're going to be looking at a mid-level or even senior level role if you've played your cards right.
Yeah. I think the key word there is immersive as well. Something that Max and I have brought up before and also noticed is, because we go to a decent amount of these conferences and stuff as well, sometimes you get people that go to them and they just kind of sit in the corner. They don't really get involved with the event too much, which I can understand because, we're in a tech field and, some people just don't have that social ability as much. But I would just recommend people really try and just have a conversation with one person. And obviously it's going to be difficult for some people. And it's just about, taking that step, have a conversation with one person, the next time maybe try two. And I think it really is about trying to really get stuck into it and get really involved with the community. And once you're in that space, as you said, you never know when the tap on the shoulder is going to come.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you'd be surprised, right? I go to those, the ASA conferences and the CyberCon and sort of stuff. I've done a couple of talks to them from now. Those conferences are great for that technology space because that's what they are. C-level won't go to them. Like, you're not going to get a chief executive officer or even a CISO or a CSO going to those conferences to do much more than just go and speak to their mates, really. The clients aren't there. That's why they're, every time I go, there's something about vulnerabilities. I spam me, another vulnerability lecture. There's some good stories getting on. Now it's all AI and it's, these sorts of things. So the thing I think we need to do at these conferences is speak about the human side more. And when I mean the human side of cyber, I mean the human elements of us as a cyber industry. Because you're right, I don't know how many badly fitting suits I've seen at a cyber conference with a backpack that reek of I'm a tech nerd. When they're probably not, but they won't talk, and it's really difficult to have a conversation. Even for someone like me, I'm an extrovert, I'll talk to anybody. I mean, I think that's my policing background. I mean, I don't care. I'll rock up to anyone and say, "Hey, how you going?" And you can talk to me about anything. And if you recognize me, or just knock them, just tap them on the shoulder and say, "Hey, this is, remember me," or whatever. We have those conversations, but unless you're willing to immerse yourself in that communication, you're not building your network. You're not building your network. We spoke about before, right? Your net worth is your network. You've got to build that. Relationships are rocket ships, right? So keep building that up. It's got to be something you focus on if you're a cyber person. Don't sit in that dark dungeon with your hoodie on or give that perception, because that's not what cyber's about. Cyber is not a 21-year-old kid with a hoodie. It's about a 48-year-old mother who's just playing on the internet, having a good time and going, "Oh, I didn't do some bad stuff today." It can be as simple as that. I know a lot of other older generation people my age and older who love to dabble dangerously. So it's interesting. I'll buy that off the dark web and fire that out. Anyway. How it is.
Yeah. Awesome. I think that's probably good for the time. Neil, do you have any closing remarks or any advice or any funny stories to that our viewers might be interested in?
Probably go another hour with that stuff.
We can also just save them for another time and go in real in depth with stories as well. It's fine as well.
Yeah, I got plenty of stories, man. Jesus. Let me start with some advice I want to give the new starters or the people that are looking into the industry.
Yep.
Don't give up. Do not give up. If you don't know where to go, find me on LinkedIn or connect with the network and ask. Ask the question. Don't be afraid to ask. There's so many people out there that are willing to help you. It's not funny. Whether you're a military veteran, serving member, ex-police officer, or just civilian, people are there to help you. I get multiple calls a day from people I don't know, just saying, hey, got your phone number, send me a random email, and next minute we're on a half an hour call trying to get them into a program.
Yep.
This industry needs people with an open mind. And if you hit a closed door, then you need to open your network, right? You need to broaden your network because the network's where the information sits. So, reach out if you're on LinkedIn. And if you're not on LinkedIn, you should be on LinkedIn. And if you're not on LinkedIn because of the international security perspective, I get it, but doesn't mean you can't give me a call. And I'm more than happy to run you through how it works. But for those veterans that are looking to get in, we have a full program from Woe to Go. We're doing some really cool things this year. We've got IC Squared coming in with the university on a veterans program in a, you may have seen on LinkedIn, again, on a veterans program, particularly for IC Squared with our degree and the likes. That's going to broaden out. I've got some very exciting news in Victoria for Victoria police officers coming up in the next couple of weeks. There's a whole shift for just the general cyber person or person who's trying to get into the industry. And it's not as hard as you think, and it's not what you think. It's a lot easier to get in and get started than people are telling you. It's only, and I guess, look, you've really got to find the right support.
It's all based on your plan. Your plan, you have to have the right plan, and you have to keep at it. And that's the recipe, in my opinion.
Look, heavy lifting too, Max, right? So this is not an industry you get in and go, hey, I just sat down an online course and now I'm a security guy. You have to do a lot of heavy lifting.
Yes.
There's work there, you've got to lean in. If you're not comfortable with leaning in, then this area is not for you. It changes so much. We read so much data coming in every year. What cybersecurity was to us in the technology space last year doesn't exist anymore.
Yep.
It's the new stuff. Like now we have the AI stuff. What the hell is that going to look like? What does AI governance look like, to your point before?
Absolutely, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for that, Neil. We'll have to have you on again for some of those stories, I think. Maybe we might do a couple episodes on those. But thanks so much for coming on.
My pleasure. Anytime, guys. Anytime.
Thanks for listening. Just a reminder that the Cyber Minutes podcast is for educational purposes only. The views expressed by hosts and guests are their own, not necessarily their employers. Advice discussed is general advice. We promote ethical discussions, not illegal activities. Have a cybersecurity question? Send an email to cyberminutespodcast@gmail.com, as we'd love to answer it. Stay cyber safe.